For more than 100 years, the Haley Red Family Foundation has proudly supported Auburn University scholarships, investing in students' dreams and brighter futures. For over 25 years, we've also stood beside the Sheriff's Girls Ranch, helping young women find hope and opportunity. The Haley Red Family Foundation, building generations of success.
Welcome in again, everybody, to the Terry Bowden Show on Auburn Undercover. I'm your co-host, Ronnie Sanders, and we're joined today, as always, by former Auburn coach Terry Bowden, and we have a special guest today, the legendary Pete Jenkins. Guys, good to be with y'all.
Pete, good to see you, Pete. Again, when we want to know what's going on in football at different schools, I have to say this. They've usually had Coach Jenkins up there to talk to him, so he's been to about every school somewhere here and there. And I think he was there. You there with Auburn? Pete, what schools have you been to this spring? Any 2 or 3 schools that you've gone over, talked to, helped with, assisted with? Or?
Yeah, I've been to Oregon. I've been to North Carolina State. I've been to Georgia, and I've been to Auburn. I just did 4 this year, Terry. Yeah, it gets a little harder for me.
Yeah.
That's 20 nights.
Yeah.
25 nights in a hotel, and that ain't as much fun as it used to be honest.
Was it all driving distance? I get tired of getting through airports, so I get tired of that.
Airports. Yeah, the travel is, the travel is really hard, isn't it? It's a pain, and I tell you, Oregon is the worst one. Getting into Eugene, Oregon, it's like breaking in jail, man. It's unbelievable. There ain't nothing out there but Nike and the university,
That's right.
I drove to Georgia and I drove to Auburn, so I didn't have but 2 flying trips, which was good. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this again. Auburn, they just had their spring game, and of course, we're on the Auburn network now, and so most of our listeners are Auburn fans. But the few things. Well, before we get to Auburn, I'm curious as to a coach, and I've been in this a long time. My first year as a head coach, '83, but you were many years in there before that. You got into college coaching, but spring, they're talking about going to an extra week before the season begins, and now we're going into early August, and then I guess we're not adding games, but we're extending the season a little bit longer to have 2 weeks. I know you go back like I do to 10-game seasons. Do you wonder? I mean, how far can they go in these games?
Yeah, I do, Terry, and I think the last thing they think about is the damn players.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, what did Winston Churchill say? No, so few to be asked of so much.
Of so few, yes.
Yeah, he was talking about the RAF during the Second World War and everything. But I'm telling you, I just don't even think that's considered. I don't hear the word student athlete anymore. People don't use it. But we keep adding games, we keep adding practice, we keep, it's really hard. And you can't practice, Terry, like we used to. You can't do that. And when I went to pro football, I wondered, how in the world were you going to play that length of a season? But I learned very quickly. The first year that we came home from training camp, which was pretty tough, the training camp was pretty tough. But the first year that we came home from back to Philadelphia from training camp up in the northern part of the state, they told me, you won't be wearing pads except on Sunday from now on.
Yeah.
And it was a different tempo. It was a whole different operation. And I realized they have to do that because of the length of the season and the cost to the body during that longer season and everything. So, it's really different to me in college football. I don't know where they're going with this thing, to tell you the truth. I mean, I wake up like a duck every day in a new world. I'm like, they add games. They want to make 16 teams. in the playoffs. It's crazy to me.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it. But
Yeah. I mean, and yeah, I mean, I guess the good thing is in college football, they added a week in August, but they didn't add a regular season game. So it gives you 2 weeks off during the season. But I have to believe
yeah, but
they can make more money. Yeah.
2 weeks off is tough too now, right?
Oh, I know.
I mean, one open date's tough. I hated a couple of times I've been faced with having two,
Yeah.
Open day, and that's tough. That just what it does is just extend the pain. It really does.
Right. And now we've got I guess the big thing now too, and we got to hit some of the recent things. And again, I always love talking to fellas that have been through the different eras of college football. And when in one day we didn't think we could do anything, we had to end the season, and the football season had to end in December, so we wouldn't extend it into January. And now we play the national championship on the last weekend of January, or the fourth week of January. But even now they're talking of going to not just a 12-team playoffs, but the SEC would prefer 16-game playoff. The Big 12 Big 10 want a 24-team playoff.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that's like, and it's all about money. It's all about getting more teams in your conference locked into a playoff.
Yeah.
And you're right. When is it about the young men and not about the money? Because it's about the money.
It's what it is. And of course, what I've learned in just recent years, my last year of coaching officially was 2023. Coach Kelly brought me back to LSU after the third game in 2023. Okay. But I've learned a lot, even in these visits. I thought one particular school that I visited this year, the D-line room was totally different than it had been the previous 10 years. And I got to thinking about it. And you know what I think it was, Terry? I think those guys are making so daggone much money.
Yeah.
And, I go to Auburn.
Yeah.
They got a kid there last year that I really liked, number 47. I can't think of that boy's name. His brother had played there. I had worked there 1 year, a couple of years ago. His brother had been a good player, very effective college player, undersized defensive lineman. This kid, 47. I don't know, Ronnie, can you look up that boy's name? I thought I was excited about him being back.
Right.
Well, I go in the meeting room. The first thing I do, I don't see him in the room. And I asked Vontrell, the D-line coach, and he said, Coach, he's at LSU. And I said, that boy's brother played at Auburn. He played a lot last year, did a really good job, and he gets a little more money at Auburn at LSU, and he leaves Auburn to go. I don't know. I think it was time for. I think it worked out real good, Terry. That I ran out of eligibility when I did. I'm really big into that loyalty stuff, and I don't think we're promoting that with NIL. I just think that we're going in a direction where we're promoting things such as selfishness and lack of loyalty, as opposed to the lessons that the game teaches people. I think knowing your dad like I did, he would have a tough time with this.
Yeah,
Malik Blockton was the kid's name.
What was it?
Malik Blockton.
Malik Blockton. That's him. Yep, that's him. Yeah, good little player. Not I wouldn't classify him as a great player, but he's a good little player. And I was excited about him coming back to, being back next year for Auburn and everything. But, he'll be on. He's playing for my boy down at LSU, Kevin Peoples, the tackles coach down there. And I thought he'd have a really good year this year and whatever. But, those guys can't even make plans like that. Think about that, Terry. I mean, they don't know who's going to be back and who's not. Half the time, it's just, boy, it's really difficult. They made it a difficult job even more difficult.
Yeah, I mean the ability to as a coach with a love and commitment to teaching young people to be able to have an impact on young men like you did when you had them from 18 years old to 22 or 17 to 22. You don't have that anymore.
No,
And so the impact that you can have on players is about
gone.
as it's gone, except for a drill here or a technique there. But you have very little chance to make a big impact on the character and the personality of the young men and understanding the values they can get out of football.
You hit that nail right on the head. You really do. I mean, that I really missed that part of it. You
Yeah.
know, so last year, several of my friends that are in pro football, guys that I've worked with,
Right.
so a lot of guys that I worked with as college coaches have moved on to the NFL. Anyways, they kept calling me about a kid from Oregon, and they would describe him and tell me how good he was and whatever. And I said, I don't remember that guy. And then another call would come, and it would be about the same guy. And I said, I remember being in a room with them, and I knew most of them. I don't remember that guy at all. So I said, okay, I'm going to call Tony Tiotti, who's been studying with me for years, the D-line coach at Oregon.
Yeah.
I called him and I said, Tony, I keep getting this call about this guy. I can't remember. Where did he sit in the room? Or what? And he said, Pete, you wouldn't remember him. He said he didn't come in for spring practice. He came in during training camp. And he said the day the season was over, he was gone. So I think about now, Terry. Listen, I think about that, and I think about a boy, and I use him for the same example on the same subject. There's a boy named Carl Dunbar, who you've met. I had him come to our camp at Auburn and work with me when he got out of pro football and all that stuff. Anyways, so Dunbar, we recruited Dunbar at LSU. We didn't know what we were going to do with him. He was a big old kid with a big old frame. We put number 63 on him where we could go in different directions. He couldn't run fast. He couldn't bench his body weight. His vertical jump, we couldn't get a sheet of notebook paper under his feet on his standing broad. His vertical jump. And he sat there in that meeting room with me for 5 years. He sat right beside me for 5 years. His redshirt freshman year, all the way through. Now, Ronnie, you know Carl, huh?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
He sat there right beside me. I used to jokingly tell people, they'd mention Carl to me, and I'd say, yeah, unfortunately, I've spent more time with Carl than I have my own children. Because he was with me for 5 years. He went to the NFL. I coached him every summer. He would come back every summer, and I would work with him when he was in the NFL. And then when Coach Saban, when I went to LSU in 2000 with Coach Saban, he hired Carl to be my helper. So we rode to practice every day. We were together every day, during that period of time.
Right.
So here's what Carl has done. I think he's in like his 16th year coaching in the NFL. Okay. Mm-hmm. He's got 3 children who have all graduated college and all are very productive and great kids. He's got the same wife that was his girlfriend at LSU. He's had a really meaningful life. This guy's as good a defensive line coach as he is in the NFL. But here's the thing, Terry. Think about him as compared to the boy at Oregon.
Yeah.
That boy came in for training camp and left as soon as the season was over. His attachment to Oregon. Now, he is a good football player, and he's a really good football player. He's done well. Right. He did well in his rookie year. But, what Carl meant to me, that was why that was what kept me in coaching so much. The Leonardo Carsons, those type of guys kept me.
Oh, yeah.
They kept me. Yeah, I loved, Leonardo I probably hear from Leonardo once every 2 weeks. And he'll text me and he'll say, Coach, you doing okay? I was just checking on you. You don't build relationships like that anymore. It's just It's a different sport and it's a different time. And like I said, I think I ran out of coaching eligibility about the right time because I'm too old for it to.
Well, yeah, and it's happened that way for all of us, but that's what I think I'm is too. I mean, right now we've been the last few weeks we've had Damian Craig on the show with us, Frank Sanders on the show with us. I've talked to Willie Anderson. You know, guys that they say, Coach, you don't know what an impact you made. It makes you feel good when you remember and say, Coach, you made an impact on me. You made an impact on our team.
They're part of your life.
Yeah,
they're part of your life. Yeah,
I mean, I've got a 17.
Part of their life.
Yeah, I've got a 17 player thread of guys at Akron that I'm on with 17 players, and we're always laughing or cutting up. You find out more about yourself, and those players will talk to you a little bit more about you and how much they loved you, but they love to jag you behind your back. And I've had more fun, and I don't know that you get that. And the more I listen to Coach Saban when he's talks, the more I think he's in the same boat as we are. It's just it's not the same game.
He is. His commitment to the players. Yeah. This has been a hard thing for me to get people to understand a lot of times. His commitment to the players was so much stronger than anybody ever realized. I remember one time he had a corner over there that I was working over there, twice a year and sometimes 3, but he had a corner over there, and the boy got into some trouble, and he was a repeat offender, and they had to dismiss him. And I called a friend of mine on the staff, and I said, "Boy, I know that made Coach Saban. He has done so much for that kid. He has tried so hard to help that kid." And I said, "I know that really made him mad." And the guy said, "No, Pete, that I don't think it really made him mad. I think it hurt him."
Yeah.
And it stopped me in my tracks, Harry. I thought, yeah, exactly. I used the wrong words. I know it hurt him because I know his commitment to the players. And look, when they lost their commitment to the program,
right?
It was hard, and I understand it. I'll be honest with you. There was 2 kids in 23 down at LSU that had already put the name in the portal and all that stuff. Now, Coach Kelly, who was really good to me, Terry. I mean, Kelly, I know it didn't end up good for him at LSU and all that, and there's reasons for that. But he was a really good human being, I thought. And he let those kids. We had so few defensive linemen. I had 3 defensive ends for 2 positions, and I had 3 defensive tackles for 2 positions. So, he let those 2 kids stay even after they said they were leaving, just where we could have practice.
Right.
But I'm telling you, and I feel this is a flaw in my personality, I know. I felt different about them once I found out they didn't want to be there and we're not staying.
Yeah.
We took them all the way through the bowl game. But every time I'd see them in the meeting room, I felt like, they don't want to be here. They don't really want to be here. And I always felt like, that if they don't want to be here, I wish they weren't here, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
But I understood why he did that. We had to have them, for practice, and then especially for the bowl practice and everything. But it's changed, and I saw it affect Coach Saban. He's a guy that believes, like you and I do, in the values of the game and the values. Yeah. But I brought Dunbar up. I mean, I love. He was such a part of my life, as well as the others. I don't mean just him. Leonardo Carson's the same guy that Auburn, or those guys, But he, I watched him grow into a man, and then I watched him as a man do great things, and he was such a great father and all that kind of stuff. The guy at Oregon. Teote coached him for about 3 months and hardly knew the guy. Yeah. The NIL stuff, as opposed to where we used to be in football, The game was good for kids.
Yeah. It's let me ask you something, and we'll jump back into the into Auburn for a second. You were there. Did you get a chance to watch practice and watch the quarterback Byron Brown to get to
Yeah.
get to watch him play? You may not have seen him as much at South Florida, but you did get to watch him a little bit in spring ball, or the day you were there, the one you were there.
Can I be honest? Can I be honest with you? They
Yeah,
were having a hard time getting the ball off, getting a pass off.
yeah,
I didn't watch it. I didn't watch 7-on-7 or any of that
right.
stuff y'all watch and
Oh
everything.
yeah,
But the team, you know, I didn't see anybody look real bad. They had a couple of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
They looked okay. You know, it's the first time I've seen Auburn without. Now the running back was not at practice. The kid that played last year,
Jeremiah
is a
Cobb.
pretty good little back.
Yeah,
A pretty good little back. I think he's a competitor. But you know, it's the first time I hadn't seen Auburn with a dominant back.
Yeah.
The receiver thing had changed a lot since last year. You know, there was a lot of talent missing in the receiver area too. You know, they lost a couple of really good players, as you know, to the NIL thing, and that number 8, you know, who could catch a BB.
Yes,
I think he went to Texas, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, but they just, you know, they just didn't look like that. Now, let me say this, Terry. The practice was well organized.
Right.
Everywhere I looked, people were coaching. Everywhere I looked, people were coaching hard. The thing was, it was a disciplined operation. It just, you know, it had a good feel about it.
Right.
It felt like to me, it just felt like to me that this is a guy who can, if they'll give him time, which they've had difficulty at times doing that, but if they'll just give him time, it looks like to me he's on the right road,
right,
to build a program at Auburn. Yeah. And let me tell you this: the recruiting, here's my key word is accountability. Right. I tell all the young coaches I work with, if you take a job and you don't feel accountability right away, don't buy a house, because you ain't gonna be there very long. You know what I mean?
Oh, and yeah.
I felt like he was he being the head coach, the guys seemed like they were being held accountable for doing things. And they, you know, I sat in the defensive room. There's 2 returning guys in the defensive room. And what I did notice and felt was they had kind of gelled together. Mm-hmm. They seemed to all, let me put it this way, they all seemed to be pulling the rope in the same direction. Right. Mm-hmm. And everything. So I was encouraged. I really was. I was a little bit discouraged looking at the talent. So let's just say, as opposed to last year when I was there. Right. I thought it was a pretty talented looking team last year when I was there, you know. Right. And everything. But I do think I did come away with a good feeling, Terry.
Yeah. You know, and again, you probably didn't get a chance to watch the spring game. There's a little bit of discussion. I don't say griping. The quarterback didn't have a great game. Byron Brown did not have a great spring game. And of course I watch, and I have a reason. I have an opinion as to why, because you and I know the rules of a spring game probably do more to put the quarterback and the defensive line at a disadvantage, because when you tell the guys, don't touch the quarterback, don't you dare touch him. Yeah. And then your quarterback is a dual threat that really is a little better runner than he is passer. And I'm gonna say this, y'all. I mean, he had a couple intercepts and didn't play as well. But when you take a dual threat quarterback like Byron Brown, he rushed for over 1,000, threw for 3,000 last year, led the nation in touchdowns because he ran for, I think, 14 and threw for a bunch, but he didn't have a good day. But what I would tell Auburn people is this: when you take a dual threat that really is a great runner, when you take away the run, because they're going to blow the whistle on him, and now he doesn't throw comfortably. He's now throwing when it's like, okay, I've got to show people what I can do. And every time he tries to run, they don't let him run. And so I say you can't take that element out of his game
No.
because the other element won't look good enough. It won't look
No.
good by itself, and that's kind of the way it was with him. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and I believe that too.
Yeah.
And really, when you got a quarterback like that, he's playing with one hand tied behind him. Really, Coach.
That's right.
You're taking away a real big element in his game. I thought he looked good. I didn't realize until you told me those stats. I didn't realize the kid was that productive at South Florida.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I didn't see anything like that. Now I saw a scrimmage on Tuesday, and I saw a regular practice on Thursday, and I left Friday. I didn't see the spring game and everything, so I really didn't. I talked to the defensive coaches, and they thought they did some pretty good things in the game, and they had got a lot of, they were identifying things they got to work on and things that they did well and whatever. But they didn't. I didn't see that in the scrimmage on Tuesday. Now, there's a chance, Terry, that they didn't play him on that Tuesday too, because I didn't know who was playing quarterback. I was really concerned with watching the defensive guys,
defensive line.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My eyes don't go far from there. That's what they've been looking at for 55 years.
Yeah, it's a different perspective when it comes to that. And the other part of a spring game that I think fans need to understand, and you do definitely, because as a head coach, I'd have to call the team together. I said, don't y'all touch that, especially if I had one quarterback a lot better than the rest of them. Don't y'all dare touch him. I don't want his hand coming across and hitting you on the helmet and breaking his hand. So now when they break free, they run around the quarterback. They don't run that straight line, so you don't get a good feel for the offensive lineman being able to block or the defensive people getting a good rush because everybody's protected. And then the quarterback, they blow the whistle even if he does scramble. So it's kind of hard to get the true look when you got a quarterback that's a dual threat or your defensive line's trying to learn how to get after that quarterback when you can't get in his throwing motion. You don't have much of a rushing lane.
I've had quite a few butt chewings about that over the years.
My biggest arguments
were my guys away from the quarterback.
I think about the biggest arguments ever had with the two coordinators for the spring game because nothing could. And then the poor officials, they didn't know. They don't know what to do because they're making somebody mad every call they make. But I do know that the quarterback, I did get to watch him a lot because as an analyst, I watched South Florida. But he is a guy that's more of an elite runner than an elite passer. But when he runs like he does, it gives him easy passes. It gives him short yardage passes, and he's comfortable. He's in his zone. He's in his element. And so I think they took him. When you take a guy and you ruin that part of it, that takes him out of the element. But again, I'm like you. I like what I saw. Ronnie and I were there a couple of weeks earlier, and we're in the office talking to the coaches. And I don't know if you were around Alex, the head coach, very much. I wasn't around him much before he went to Auburn, but I was, I could watch him from a distance. He has a good work ethic, and he does believe in running that football, which I think you got to do.
Yeah, and one thing I would add to you that you might find, he drives a damn Tesla truck.
A Tesla truck,
which I think is probably the ugliest.
Is that the tank looking deal?
It looks like a
square up deal.
Plow. Ugly thing. Here's what I did notice though, because where his parking space was, I noticed this every morning when I came to work. That Tesla was sitting there. It was pretty obvious because. It's the ugliest thing in the parking lot, and it was there. And every night when I got off and went home or went back to the hotel, that damn Tesla was there. So I think the guy's a worker, I think the guy's, I was really high on him when I left. And I really didn't get to know him on a personal level because,
Right.
he didn't have a hell of a lot to do with me, which I understood. But it had a good feel about it. It really had a good feel.
Yeah, Durkin has done a good job there. I think they brought back the defensive coordinator because their defense kept them in games last year.
They played extremely well, I thought.
Yeah.
They gave them some opportunity. They gave them Auburn opportunities to win games. The defense did, and that's their job to do. But I think Dirk. I've known Durkin a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
I think he does a good job. He's a good football coach, I think.
Yeah.
And that defensive line coach, let me tell you, that boy did a good job with his kids too.
Mm-hmm.
He was there the first year I worked over there. Jeremy Garrett, who is now at the Chicago Bears. Jeremy was the D-line coach, and Vontrell was his assistant. And then Jeremy left and went to pro ball,
mm-hmm.
and Coach Freeze kept Vontrell in that position. I think that was a good decision because I could tell in the meeting that Jeremy and Vontrell were on the same page, and I could tell the players really respected both of them and liked both of them as coaches and everything. So I think that helped. I think that helped last year to to form that defense. And I think they're both back. Like I said, that whole defensive staff, it was really interesting and informative sitting in there listening to them talk among them and watching film with them and stuff like that. Yeah, I think Durkin does a nice job.
Yeah. You mentioned the talent level from last year, but Auburn didn't win many games last year. How many games can they win this year?
I don't know about that. I don't know who's going to fumble and who's going to jump off sides or whatever. I would starve to death as a prognosticator. I'll tell you that. I mean, I'd pick the wrong team.
That's why I've lost weight. That's why I've lost some weight now. I'm a prognosticator.
I would starve to death as a. I can't eat. I can't eat. And the game's so delicate. Last year, the thing used to just kill me every Saturday watching Auburn. Terry, and I've never coached on offense. It's always been the enemy. But they'd be a 1st and 10, and they get a procedure penalty. And I'm watching the TV. I'm pulling like hell for them. And all of a sudden now, rather than 1st and 10, it's 1st and 15. And then I saw situations last year where they move the ball a little bit, and it's going to be 3rd and 2. And they get a procedure penalty, and now you're playing 3rd and 7, which is a difficult down.
Absolutely.
I don't know. It's just really, to me, you got to be really good to overcome those kind of mistakes. Yeah. And it's like shooting yourself in the foot. You got a drive going and you kill yourself. And you wind up giving the other team another possession, and here you go. So I don't know, and I don't know I don't know the league and the schedule, and it seems like somebody told me that there were a lot of tough games on the road next year on next year's schedule. Did I hear that? Did somebody tell me?
At Georgia, at Alabama, I believe.
At Tennessee, at Georgia, at Ole Miss, at Mississippi State, at Alabama. That would probably be considered pretty tough. I don't think it's
that. You could put that in the tough schedule, I think.
Yeah, that's
and that's another thing too. It's I don't know. I don't know. I can't judge that. I don't know how they're gonna play and how it's gonna all turn out. I don't know if they'll kick the ball well or whatever. I noticed the field goal Tuesday when they scrimmaged. He brought the field goal teams out there, and it looked like the kickers did a pretty good job. I mean, I don't know much about kicking other than I know when they make it and when they don't make it. But they look like, it looked like that there were some things like that. They were pretty good at things. And what I was more impressed with was the tempo and the attitude at practice. That's what I was more impressed with. And I couldn't tell much about how they're going to fare and all, but anyways, I hope they win them all.
Well, the interesting thing is, and I think it has to do with enough players on the team understand what the head coach expects. I think he's got 14 players from South Florida, and I want to bring this up because it's interesting. I don't know the answer to it. I think Kurt Cignetti at Indiana made everybody think twice because I coach in the Sun Belt. James Madison's a Sun Belt. We don't recruit the players that the SEC recruits. But he took 21 from James Madison out of the Sun Belt and kind of got that thing turned around. And a quarterback that first year from Ohio University. Alex took, I think he's got 14 from South Florida. So on one hand, you say, well, how does this work? I know I've coached at every level. I know when you get to the SEC, you're in different homes than you are when you're coaching in the Sun Belt or the American. But on the other hand, when you have to win quickly, like in today's world, you're getting paid a lot of money and you got to win quickly. I think when you look at what Kurt Cignetti did at Indiana the first year and the second year, he brought some people that understood his system, how practice worked, how they worked, and it seemed to have worked for him. And I think it's at Auburn they've got quite a few players from South Florida that probably weren't recruited by the SEC, just like the James Madison players were not recruited by Penn State in the Big Ten. But he proved that by knowing the system and believing in you and you believing in them, and maybe this is true because I do. I don't. I had Urban Meyer on my show the other day. I said, you know what? Coaches don't like to say it's about X's and O's. They like to say it's about Jimmys and Joes. But after watching Indiana a lot, they were the third less penalized team in the country. They played great run, great pass, great run defense, great pass defense. They're pretty well coached too, So I think nowadays, I think with everybody getting NIL people, you better make sure fundamentally sound. I know my dad used to say, Terry, from January 1 to July 31st, you win with coaching. From August 1st to December, you win with players. So you better coach and recruit in the offseason, and then you better let those players play during the season.
Yeah. That's a very interesting point, too. I don't know how they explain Cignetti's. I fell in love with the team because they were, everybody did. I mean, they were what you want in a football. And I was entertained by picking up the paper and reading where he had a transfer come out in gold cleats. Did you hear?
I didn't hear that. What?
In spring ball? Yeah. Well, he sent him back in. He said that we don't wear that. So I think he he's doing it right. He's doing it the right way. But I hate to say this to you. I really think coaching is underrated.
Yeah, I do too.
I think it's players. I think it's players. We all talk about players and all that, but I've seen good players get messed up by bad coaching. I've seen average players play really at a high level by good coaching. And I think coaching is coaching and organization and those things. I think are still important in the game, and it may be even more important since you don't have the length of time with them. I had Carl Dunbar developed very well into a really great player. Okay, but I had 5 years to develop him.
Right.
That guy at Oregon that we were talking about in comparison, he played very well for him at Oregon. And they didn't even have him in the spring. They had him, for the first game, they had him and everything. So, but you got to coach. I think you got to coach a little different. And I don't know if you can do as much with the transfer. I think you got to pare it down a little bit.
Play it down a bit. Now, I don't know if you knew, but Kurt Cignetti, his dad was my dad's offensive coordinator 6 years at West Virginia. And Kurt grew up down the street. About 5 years younger than I am. We went to the same high school, and then when his dad became the head coach, he hired Nick Saban, and Nick was that. So I mean, he was around good coaches all his life that knew about fundamentally coaching football. But I'm gonna say this, and I'll say this in all honesty. I know you won't recognize it, but there's a reason every college team in America and half the pro teams have hired you to go work with their defensive line. because some people can move it's like chess. Everybody can't move the pieces around as good as other people, or nobody ever win. Some people can just fundamentally technique, and I think it's because one, some coaches relate to players better. They love the players and they relate. And then they have a passion for fundamentals in football, a passion for the fundamentals of the game. And as I watched you coach over the years, you had a special, and you and Trickett were about as different as a man on the moon on the field when it came to personality.
Thank you.
But but and I'm not sure the players loved him like they loved you. I think they down the road they appreciated that. But I watched you get the most out of the Brumbaughs, the great kids who would do anything you say, and Leonardo Carson, you brought him along a little differently. And so I do believe that coaches don't like to hear it, but they better go out there and make sure they don't get out coached week in and week out, because you still got to be able to move the pieces around and teach them how to play the game.
You're so right, Terry. Thank you so much. And I consider it a great compliment. Thank you. It's very meaningful to me. Thank you.
Well, it's amazing what's happened. And I think it's going to, with players, I've always told my coaches that, during the season, there's going to be 4 or 5 games where coaching ain't going to mean a thing. When we play Sanford, or we went at Auburn, we play somebody that's not in the league, we're going to mess up and win. But if you get to the championship or you get to the playoffs nowadays, and the players, and both teams have good players, you better coach your ass off. I'm going to tell you something, because it's going to get back to that meeting room and that team room and the fundamentals of football when it gets down to a team that's equal talent, and that's why I think it's becoming more important. Is everybody, the Texas Techs and the Ole Misses and the Oregons and the they're getting good, Virginia and Vanderbilt. The players are they're picking up players they used to not be able to pick up. And the other guys, and so you better outcoach some of these teams, or they're going to step in there and whip you a tail. That's for sure.
Coaching matters, Terry.
Yep, it always has, and I think even now we're seeing it more. Unfortunately, the players have less time to learn from it because you got them for 1 year, and maybe that's why coaches is even more important. So you don't waste your time on useless information, or not teaching the best things you can teach and all that stuff. Let me talk to you about we got some times and you've worked with a lot of these guys, but a lot of new coaches in the conference. Everybody's going with Texas. Is getting a lot of pub. You mentioned Cam Coleman went with Texas. Sark's he's got a heck of a team this year, and but again, he's at a place where you got to win, and you have to wonder, does he have the right stuff? Now, I've not been around him as much as you have. I'm sure you had when you were going to visit Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, I think he's got a good football mind.
Yeah,
and he's got a very relaxed, nice way with the players. And I liked him on a personal level, and I thought, for the most part, I thought he handled everything good. I thought he's a good play caller.
Yeah.
I thought during the game, which I felt that way about you too. He, some people your dad had a talent for it.
Yeah.
Real feel for it. And I thought you did too when you did call the plays for us over there. Mm-hmm. But I think he's good. I was shocked that Will went over to Will Muschamp.
Yeah, well, he went back over. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's like me. He can't stay out. You know what I mean? He stays out and gets rested, and he wants to get back in.
I told Will, if anybody ought to be coaching, it's him.
Yeah, he'll help them. I think toughness wise, he'll help them on defense and everything. And I worked with the D line coach over there. Good little coach, boy. Good, I say coach, good young coach. So I think in the latter part of the season last year, I thought Manning really was who we all thought he was going to be.
I did too. I'm with you all the way on that. Too much expected early because he didn't ask for that, and his dad didn't, his family. But they put the whole world on his back.
Yeah, they did. I felt kind of sorry for him because they anointed him before we ever kicked it off, and
right.
But I did think his progress was pretty evident watching him just on TV, and he's like the kid you described at Auburn. That boy can run the football pretty damn good.
Oh yeah,
talking about Manning, he's got good speed.
He does,
and he can dodge you in open field and stuff like that. I think they look like, to me, just on paper. I didn't go over there this year, but they look like, to me, a team that's got a chance to win the conference and everything. I don't know what their schedule looks like, but the thing I've always felt about Texas was they needed toughness.
Mm-hmm.
They had the times I coached against them and everything. They were the best they looked was coming into the gates to the stadium. They were never quite as tough as I thought they needed to be.
Right.
I think Will would add some of that to the defense, to be honest with you, Terry.
Right. No, I think you're exactly right. Having coached against Will when he was a player at Georgia for 2 years, then I gave him his GA job to come work with us, and he's maybe a better defensive coordinator. Sometimes your personality gets to be a little too much over the top as a head coach at times. But boy, as a defensive coordinator, he will light a fire. And I agree with you. And on Sark, and I don't know. Maybe we just think differently when you come from the West Coast or you're a Southern Cal guy, or because I don't think they run it well, physical enough at Texas. No. But again, and I think that's what they're saying about Alabama, and that's the next thing I want to mention to you. That of course, the head coach at Alabama is from he was at Washington and coached on the West Coast too. I just noticed now he went 11-4 last year, and as well as I do that town does not treat coaches very well if they don't win them all. And that's a tough place to be.
That's 8 losses, 2 years. That's 8 losses.
Yeah, and they just gave him a 7-year.
That's 8 losses.
And 8 losses, and they just this. I saw it in the paper this morning. It's the natives are restless over there, and yet they just gave him a 2-year extension to 7 years, $13.5 million a year. Yeah. With a 90% buyout, which means they've got to, if they fire him, they've got to pay him 90% of that salary with no mitigation at all. And they're great for him. I'm good for him, good for his agent. But I'm saying that doesn't jive
Sounds like
with
a good deal for him.
Yeah, I mean it's a no-lose situation. And yet that town is. It seems to me if he
signed it had I been.
The over-under on Alabama is 8.5, but if he won 8 and didn't win 9, or if he won 9, I'm not sure they would be happy. But now you've just that's about $100 million buyout next year of his contract. But anyway, it'll be interesting because, like I say, it's hard to get rid of that. And I hate to use the word because I don't think I don't study it. Well, I do watch it quite a bit. They've thrown that word soft out there. That was, I think they were like next to last in the conference in rushing. And that's not, I see Alabama as being a big back, power back. Auburn, same way as Auburn. You got to have that big back, that power back. I got stuck without one time, and man, I had to live through it. In fact, you pulled me out of it in '97 because I had a little old Markeith Cooper and Rusty Williams, and I said never let that happen again. But again at Alabama, that's going to be that's going to be tough because I tell people they went through 7 coaches between Bear Bryant and Nick, and 4 of them left on their own. They just were so unhappy. Their wives were unhappy, and their fans. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it is. I went to, as long as Coach Saban was at, I went every year, twice a year. I was there, and some years I was there 3 times.
Right.
It depended really on who the defensive line coach was. A lot of times, but because he made a couple of hires that, that were. I needed to be over it quite a bit. Anyways, but I went the first spring, after they invited me the first spring. I guess it was because of tradition or habit or whatever. And Terry, I didn't feel good being there. I really felt kind of unwanted, and unneeded, and so I haven't been back since. I've been invited back, but I haven't been back. And I guess I was part of Coach Saban's deal or whatever, and how new guys come in sometimes they don't want any of the leftovers. On the plate and all that stuff. So I don't know. I've kind of lost touch with Alabama. Now Freddie Roach and I still talk on the phone, and I think a lot of Freddie and everything as a person, and I think he does a good job as a coach too. And really, they did a great thing when they kept him, because I don't know if 4 would have been what they lost that first year.
Right.
He kept a lot of players at Alabama for him.
Right.
He loves Alabama, and I don't mean just the D line. He loves Alabama, and he was instrumental in a lot of those kids staying that didn't when Coach Saban left. But I don't have much feel for him anymore, because I kind of drifted away, when Coach Saban left and everything. But I don't know. I don't know. I can't imagine Alabama without good football players.
Yeah. I've got a couple. We only got a couple more minutes, but I can't talk to you without getting back on LSU a little bit before you get gone. We got 2 or 3 more minutes, and Lane and I was going to get your thoughts about how well they'll do this first year. And I always look at of course, I do a lot of a lot of prognosticating now, and I understand the over and under 8.5. That means that is where the money is on those guys. But Lane Kiffin, you really either like him or don't like him. I don't think there's any question there. But you wonder how he's going to do. I mean, he's got everything he wants right there. And I tend to think, whether I like him or dislike him, or whether anybody does, I think he's probably smart enough to utilize their resources and their recruiting ability and their ability to pay coaches to have a pretty good program. I could see them winning some ball games.
Yeah, I can too. And I think he, coaching against him, he has people. A lot of people talk about how good a play caller he is and things like that. And I would have to agree with that. I think he does a really good job. He's got a good feel for the game, and he's got a good. We played him in 16 at LSU in 2016. Right. And nobody scored for 56 minutes. And Dave Aranda, Lane Kiffin were in a hell of a chess match. I mean, I'm listening over the phones, and it was really, I'll never forget it. I mean, it was a slugfest. And Dave is a really good defensive coordinator. I think Dave's one of the bright, one of the bright coaches I've ever been around is a DC. And Lane was throwing some good punches, and Dave was doing some good bobbing and weaving, boy, and it was really an interesting game. I do think this, though, Terry. Lane and I are not real close or anything, but right. I do think this. I think the guy's a good football coach, and I think he may be a really good modern football coach.
Well put. Yep.
In today's world, in today's game, I don't know that Lane feels a lot of the things about but he does a good job. I mean, he did it at Ole Miss. He'd start out with 40 new guys, and all but 1 year, I thought it really worked out good for him. Yeah, I don't think I could do that nearly as well as some guys do. And it's just me. I mean, like I said, I think I ran out of eligibility about the right time, to be honest with you. But I think he manages those situations. He manages those situations a lot better than a lot of coaches do.
Well, if you look, you just have to look at the. I mean, he has bought into social media. Now, you and I don't think we're gonna win that battle.
No.
But he does yoga. He bought into social media. He talks their language, but he also is smart enough. Of course, his dad was a heck of a coach too. You know that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, his dad.
So,
A lot different guy than Lane though.
Oh, I know he was a lot different. But Lane is a different era, a different guy at a different time.
Yeah, no
and Lane paid the price when he was a young coach at Tennessee and Southern Cal and Oakland Raiders. He paid the price of being a fast talking, smooth guy. Now it looks like he's matured a little bit, but it will be interesting. And just another. There's just so many good teams, but Pete, love having you on. Every time I get you on, I wish we could go for hours. Thanks so much. Give my love to Donna, your wife, your wonderful wife, and hopefully we'll get you on a little bit closer towards the season.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, man.
Right. And before we go, let's talk a little bit about our sponsor.
Darn it. I don't know if I lost you, Ronnie, but we need to close it out. But I might have lost you when we lost him. I lost your voice, unless we've got you back. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Why don't you close us out? And we want to thank Tom Haley and the Haley Red Family Foundation for this show, and look forward to bigger things and better things. And we'll see everybody next week.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Click like and subscribe below, and it helps us out, keeps us in your feed. And we'll see you next week.
For more than 100 years, the Haley Red Family Foundation has proudly supported Auburn University scholarships, investing in students' dreams and brighter futures. For over 25 years, we've also stood beside the Sheriff's Girls Ranch, helping young women find hope and opportunity. The Haley Red Family Foundation, building